Ferrari is exiting the Miami GP with a lot of positives, despite McLaren and Norris being the superstars of the show. However, we mustn't forget is that the Maranello team is bringing their own upgrade package in Imola, one of the two home races of Ferrari where the team plans to be fighting for the race win. After the latest statement from Fred Vasseur, as well as Charles Leclerc, Ferrari do have a lot to look forward to in 2 weeks. But the question is, will this upgrade be enough to propel Leclerc to the highest place on the podium? And more importantly, how will it reflect on the relationship between him and Sainz? It goes without saying that Ferrari is one of the most positive surprises that we could have seen in 2024, apart from Miami's version of McLaren. However, Ferrari has managed to keep such a close gap and be the second fastest team on the grid by not introducing a single upgrade on the grid, being one of the few teams to have done so and to push the full package to Imola. Now that the Italian GP is on the calendar, it seems like Ferrari are looking forward to changing the narrative and stealing momentum not just from Verstappen and Red Bull, but McLaren as well. When talking about this matter to a further extent, Charles Leclerc added, "As I've said many times, I think the season will be up to upgrades. We have our upgrades coming shortly, so hopefully we can join the fight for victory soon. I believe they'll be important to the point of them defining our season. So we've got to work hard and hopefully those upgrades will be as good as McLaren's and will help us take a significant step forward." What's extremely important here is that Ferrari does have a stable platform to work on, which wasn't the case in the past couple of years. This enables the team to translate the data gained from the simulator successfully onto the track, which was exactly the case with McLaren in Miami and is exactly the issue for Mercedes and their own agenda, which is seemingly a massive failure for the third consecutive season in a row. But if we are to judge by McLaren, it looks like Ferrari's upgrade package will have a lot to prove to their fans. And when talking about the Miami GP and the results in which both Ferraris were within 0.2 of a second compared to Verstappen, Vasseur pointed out the lack of upgrades and how important they'll be for the upcoming race. Overall, we had an excellent race in Miami. Even Carlos's pace was exceptional, and he was also unlucky with a safety car because he had pitted the lap before. We have to keep the positive aspects of this weekend, even though we don't have any updates here in Miami. The pace was there throughout the weekend. Then again, in Imola, the aerodynamics of the SF24 will be changed entirely, and it's marked as the 2.0 version of the car, meaning that an evolution will be presented, and it's just one of the 3 massive steps that will have a mission to put Ferrari right up there with Verstappen and Red Bull. The pressure is massive because McLaren is also upgrading and evolving a lot, and if these upgrades tend to fail and not produce the amount of performance that Ferrari has projected, then it would very well mean that they won't be the second fastest team on the grid and will enter into a downward spiral of performance. But that's not what Fred Vasseur believes in, and when talking about the Imola package, the Frenchman is 100% certain that his team will have 2 drivers who will be available to fight for the race win in Italy. Adding to this extent, he said, "I'm sure that in Imola we'll have a better race by putting everything together. We know that many have brought updates to these races, but we finished ahead. We're at the point of development of the car where if you bring something, it's not a matter of seconds, but of tenths. It's not like a few years ago when everything brought 3 to 4 tenths. McLaren brought upgrades in Miami, but it's not like it was half a second faster than everyone. Without a doubt, we'll be able to fight for the victory in Imola. But I believe there is a gap that varies from track to track and from compound to compound, which makes more of a difference than an update. We must focus on our job, which is making the most of what we have. The upgrade that we'll bring to Imola will certainly help, but it doesn't all depend on it." Now, obviously, one of the primary issues that Ferrari will have with these upgrades, if the car turns out to be competitive for race wins, is the rivalry that is present between Leclerc and Sainz. Although everything seems smooth on the surface, it goes without saying that both of them are not going to let go of the gas pedal if it means one of them will finish higher than the other. As we've witnessed in Miami, that Sainz was asking politely for Leclerc to move aside in the first stint because he felt like he had more pace. Something that didn't happen due to the fact that Leclerc decided not to be the weaker link in Ferrari one more time. What's definitely certain is that we cannot be comparing the upgrade packages that Red Bull will bring to any other team, because the RB20 is chasing a new concept and philosophy that's been further extracted by the Mercedes team in the past couple of years, but's been dubbed a failure. Ferrari and McLaren, as well as any other team out there, have pushed more towards an RB19 concept, and it's interesting to see whether or not they'll be able to find more performance out of this car than what Red Bull have done with the revolutionary approach of the Zero Pod concept. That's not entirely the same as Mercedes, but has a vast amount of it being borrowed from the Silver Arrows. But according to Jenson Button, one of the teams that would also have to pay attention to in the current season is McLaren, especially from Imola onwards, because they're also the team for which Helmut Marko has raised the greatest awareness and danger for the Miami GP. Adding to this matter to a further extent, Button said, "The correlation between the simulator and the on-track data seems to be amazing at McLaren. The upgrades they had last year in Silverstone made a massive difference in terms of where the team will develop their car towards. It did what it said on the tin, and that's the most difficult thing in Formula 1. I think in the next couple of races, we're going to have an eye of them the whole time. And Red Bull is going to have their eyes on McLaren as well, not just Ferrari." So now it's very different in the way of thinking, because coming into a race weekend now, Red Bull know that they'll be challenged from two teams, and the strategy would have to change a little. They'll have to be on their toes the whole time. Well, it's massively important for Ferrari to implement the first upgrade package successfully, because it does have the potential to push their season in a certain direction. If it works, then Ferrari will be able to additionally put the next two big upgrades they plan for the remainder of the season on the new platform that will debut in Imola. If not, then we're going to be witnessing an entirely new approach that may or may not bring a lot of success for Ferrari, because they've already tried to develop the car in one direction, which means that they've spent their limited money and budget towards it. So anything outside of this operating window would represent bad news for the team in general. But if we are to look at the entire situation from a neutral and objective point of view, Ferrari does have a lot to look forward to, because without any upgrades and just by setup changes, they've been keeping up close with Red Bull. In qualifying, it's been especially close, and during the race, the team was able to find an excellent operating window in which they pulled a one-stopper in one of the most tyre-demanding tracks on the calendar, Suzuka. What this goes to show is that the team has a very solid platform to work on. And if we are to judge by their primary version of the car, the upgrade should be pushing them towards the top. But what we mustn't forget is that Red Bull will also complete their full upgrade package in Imola as well, which means they might be setting a new standard that would definitely be impossible to catch for the remainder of the grid due to the direction they've moved towards. So with all this in mind, do you think there is a chance Ferrari would fight for race wins from Imola onwards? Let us know in the comments down below.